Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuelia. Thank you for joining us on this special day. It is the eve of Christmas, and that's why it's special.
Good morning, Nigerians. Yes. Welcome to Daybreak. My name is Zainab Bala, and I'm super excited, anticipating for Christmas tomorrow.
I mean, the usual eating of rice, going out, to hang out with friends. I mean, these are rituals that we saw a disruption last year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. Even though it's rearing its head again, looking at the spike in the number of cases that we've had, and also the Omicron variant, which is also coming with its own, uncertainty and all of that. But I think that we're still free to move around. I think that's the most important thing. The country is not on lockdown.
Yes, and we shouldn't be on lockdown because the economy has suffered so much, through the outbreak of the pandemic. And we do hope that we find a way, around the whole pandemic and live through it as well.
Yes, of course. Though we have this COVID-19 pandemic still with us, I think that we are also dealing with another pandemic in Nigeria, which is the issue of insecurity.
Yeah.
I mean, we are going to be talking more about that yesterday. Yesterday, the president visited Maiduguri, Borno State, and then just ahead of his visit, there was an attack, by suspected Boko Haram elements. And so we'll be looking at, the security situation, even as we celebrate the Yuletide season, talking about Christmas and New Year. A lot of people are going to be traveling. If you've been to the parks, you've been to the airports, you see how the people are traveling in droves. I would say it's an exodus, really.
Experts have actually advised Nigerians, against just unnecessary travels, because of the whole security situation, all of that. But we are Nigerians. We have to travel. I mean, we love to travel.
It's like a ritual. For some, if they don't travel during this period, it's not yet Christmas until they travel. Especially some of my friends from the southeastern parts of the country. I mean, everybody knows, it's public knowledge. Anyways, well, we'll be talking a lot more on these subjects on the program today. Let's take a short breather. But that will be to look at a report, about this issue I highlighted. The president, during his visit yesterday to Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, commissioned Muhammadu Indimi Center for Distance Learning and International Conference Center, both of which were elegantly built for the University of Maiduguri. Now, Borno's first flyover with upper and lower lanes at the old customs roundabout, 10-kilometer dualized Maiduguri-Muna Road, and a new mega secondary school in Kushari in Maiduguri were also commissioned by the president. Meanwhile, police have rescued traders kidnapped along Birnin-Gwari-Kano Road. The report said that the traders were traveling in a convoy of about 20 vehicles and with police escorts. The incident happened less than 24 hours after Governor Nasir El-Rufai comment asking President Buhari to send bandits to their God. Well, that's part of what we'll be looking at. I also saw something about 70 travelers abducted along Kaduna Highway. We'll take a look at that report just now.
We have started receiving military hardware from the United States, from aircrafts, helicopters, armored cars, and we are going to be very, very hard on them. The biggest problem, which I said Nigerians should please judge this administration, is what was the condition when we came in? What is the condition now? When we came in, the people of the Northeast here knows better than anybody. Now oil has almost become irrelevant. But we thank God that oil is now discovered in the country, in Bauchi and Gombe, and that will help to balance the politics of oil in the country.
This morning, we were sitting at the frontage of our house. Then we heard a loud noise. We thought it was a jet. Then we had explosion and huge dust followed. When we look around, 2 people were already dead on the spot.
Muka tarar da wata kawarmu mai suna Walida, Allah ya karbi rayuwarta da kuma mutane biyu sun samu rauni. Muna roƙon wannan gwamnati mai alfarma ta taimaka ta agaza wa wayannan jama'an da wannan abin ya faru da su.
We urge the government to intervene and rebuild the destroyed homes.
Wannan ibtila'in ya afka kansu da ta taimaka musu don abin da za a ci ma yau ana gagara balle a ce na gobe ta taimaka musu wannan gidan da suka samu wato asarori ta taimaka ta duba gidan nan nasu a taimaka a gyara musu.
All right, thank you for staying with us. Well, there you have it, an unfortunate scenario there. But let's get perspectives on this issue, really. And we have in the studio security consultant Sani Aliyu to give us perspective on this. Now, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
I mean, if you listen to the president yesterday from his visit, he has said this time and time again, that Nigerians should assess what is better now. Is it where we were before 2015 or where we are now in terms of security situation? I mean, this is just in 1 year, 2021. Records are showing that there have been at least 25 schools that have been attacked in the northwestern part of the country. More than 1,400 abductions. That is students that were abducted, more than 1,400 of them. More than 3,000 people have been killed by Boko Haram in 2021 alone. The president yet says that the situation is a lot more better than what it was before he came. So maybe just wrap our heads around this.
Well, coming from the background where we are coming from, because it is very important to know where you were, where you are now, and where you are going to. These are the kind of assessment that we lack in this country, and sometimes we are too forgetful. If you look at our state before now, people are not very free in the country, especially in the Federal Capital Territory. People cannot go drinking, enjoying themselves, relaxing outside because of most of the relaxed places were closed. Recreational places closed. Our streets were blocked. You cannot move freely. If you are traveling to Kaduna, it takes you like 4 or 5 hours because of the huge roadblocks, as if we were in the war zone. Coming from that background, you will say there's a little improvement. That today will I excuse me first? No, you just ask me something. Let me just give you the analysis. Improvement in the times of individual movements, people movement, vehicular movements. There are a lot of improvement. The situation, the heightened insecurity situation in the country, general insecurity situation has been down. But when you want to look at the other aspect of it, the other activities, you will find out that in the northwest zone of the country, the situation now has a little bit increased, while in the north central, where we have a lot of problem, Abuja was hit over 5 times, about 5 times. You will say the government of today, led by Muhammad Buhari, has not seen any hit in Abuja like we used to see in the past Jonathan's administration. So if you want to, you cannot give this government a pass. Neither will you say that they have performed excellently well. No, it's on the average. If you want to give general look on what is the security situation in the country, from the indexes of that's global indexes, you will see that Nigeria's security situation is a bit down with about 2 to 3%.
Nigeria is the 3rd most terrorized country.
It is the 3rd most terrorized country in the world, of course, yes. That's why I say, when you are looking at this, what was the Nigerian security index in 2015? No, wait.
Okay, let me just pose this question this way now. Yes, there are still attacks. That's a given. you know. But we are talking about abductions that have continued unabated. The Niger State governor has consistently raised alarm about Boko Haram hoisting flags in parts of the Niger State. We've seen attacks on roads like the Kaduna-Abuja highway, for instance, 4 consecutive times back to back, unresisted. Now, this is just a few of attacks that we've seen. That it didn't affect Abuja, is that a yardstick to say that the situation is a lot more better now than it was?
That is not a yardstick. What I'm trying to establish here is the consistencies in the various security situations, from starting from Boko Haram period, where they were launching campaign almost every part of the country. And now, what we are having now is the bandits. Whatever the fraction is, we have said, like personally I've said it about 7-8 years ago, that Boko Haram will result into this situation we're having today because of the first in contact in the bush or in the forest with the Fulani, with the herders. Now it is there. Now, when you want to look at the situation critically from the happenings, you will see that, of course, Nigeria is the 3rd most terrorized country today, but it was used to, it's the 2nd most terrorized country, from 3rd to 2nd. You understand? And if you want to take it from that angle, it is not a good assessment that the president is giving. But if you want to look at it from the general well-being of the people in the country, from the fear, I have been traveling.
Are people scared now or not?
You will see that the fear now is there, but the pressure of before was higher.
Okay.
There is fear.
Okay.
There is fear now, but the pressure then was higher.
Okay.
People are no longer sure. That time, people are not even longer sure of the next person to them.
Okay. Now, following that explosion that happened in Maiduguri, the president gave a kind of a reassuring, statement saying Nigeria is at the final phase of tackling insecurity. Are we really at the final phase?
I haven't seen that yet, to be candid with you. I haven't seen the final stage yet. But if given to the kind of operation that came up maybe around Sokoto axis recently, and that sniff out the bandit leader to come out and start looking for peace, yes, you will say the government has really put fire on them this time around. And you see, the situation is is funny, because from one perspective, you are looking at a perspective of war, fighting, killing. In the other perspective is how sustained it can be when you say you just kill and then degrade a situation. That does not mean you have stopped the situation. What are the shock observers you are putting in place? What are the locks in checks that you are putting in place? For instance, you win the war today. They won Boko Haram, they won bandits. The question comes, how do you sustain the victory? Now, what is Nigeria doing? Where are we? What is our security architecture? Where will we be in the next 100 years? Okay, let me be just very conservative. Can even the president, can anybody in the country, I challenge all the chief securities, can they tell us the exactitude of where we are going to be in the next 10 years in terms of security situation in Nigeria? So we need experts. We need to deploy our experts. We need to work ahead of all this thing that's happening. For the president to say that, to give us that assurance, I have not seen it anywhere happening now. I have not seen the body language, the movement. I haven't seen the coordination.
How about the massive surrender of some of these Boko Haram fighters. About 8,000 here in this year surrendered, according to the GOC there.
Yeah, when you say they surrender, that's why I say, what are the locks and checks you have put in place? When you say they have surrendered, where are you taking them to? How have you been de-radicalizing them? Where are the opportunities to reintegrate them into the society? I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. And we don't have those agencies that can put up all those things. You said you are de-radicalizing terrorists within the facility of the military. What sense does that make? The terrorists, first of all, have established that dislike with the military, their enemies. And you say you are radicalizing them in their facility. The other time there was...
But these are repentant. So why should they be disliking where they are being kept?
The other time there was a revolt within their camp that they should be treated like any human being. They are giving them food without meat. Now, if you want to de-radicalize people from this kind of mental derailment, you have a lot of process to go. There's a lot of steps. To the extent you have what we call bishopship. You have to create that, you have to recreate them. They have already been interpolated. Their thinking is no longer the normal way. You can...
But I think that program is in place, isn't it?
Well,
we have that
handled by the military, which is very wrong.
Not just the military. I understand that it's a joint effort by both the state government. You have officials from the state government, SEMA, and the rest of them. Some NGOs as well are also part of that effort.
What we are saying is give an established expert agency that work to handle. Expert agency. You do not, to de-radicalize does not mean you can just come and assemble, anybody can just come and start the radicalization. No. There are steps, and it's a professional thing to be handled by experts and professionals. It is not a thing you bring SEMA. You have to define their process. That's why I'm saying Nigeria is the second most terrorized country in the world, and Nigerians do not have a single agency that is dedicated to handling terrorist and banditry situation in the country. Look at when it happened in America. Quickly, they went back to their drawing board and they came up with Homeland Security. Where is this? For all intent and purposes, Nigerian army is not to be dealing with internal insecurity situation. It is there to protect the territorial integrity of the country.
Okay.
And the police is to maintain order and peace. We don't have any agency in this country that is dedicated to handling terrorism and banditry. And then handling, again, though it is not only about the terrorists and bandits, it equally goes beyond that to the extent of who are the sponsors, how do you curtail this sponsorship, how do you block this route. And again, look at the borderline. Look at the borderline of this country.
But
we have
isn't that why we have bodies like the NIA? Why do we have the NFIUs? And why we have the EFCCs and some of these intelligence organizations?
Those ones have their
intelligence agency.
Those agencies you have mentioned all have their specificity. They were established for so purposes. Terrorism is alien and banditry is alien to Nigeria. We don't know this one before. So we never planned ahead of it. We were not expecting it. Just like America was taken by devastation in 2011 or 2011. This is a global menace.
So why don't we instead review the mandates of these organizations to reflect the current reality instead of creating new?
No, let me tell you, Nigeria, for all intent and purposes, is a country situated on a 923,000 square kilometer, and we are over 200 million people. Total security number, including every security arms you want to think of, they are less than 1 million. How can less than 1 million security agency man over 200 million people? Does it make sense? Does it make us a serious country? Go to Algeria here. Go to Egypt here. How many are they? What are the security population in these countries? What are the defense budgetary of the country? We need to, for all intent and purpose, I keep insisting that Nigeria is the most populous black nation in the world. And for all intent and purposes, we are supposed to be on the driver's seat to drive Africa. Anything short of this is not acceptable. Every African country is hugely relying and looking up to Nigeria, whether I call it South Africa or anywhere. Just recently, a South African activist says that he wants to be like a Nigeria, or he wants to behave like a Nigeria, because if you go to Nigeria, you see less white people. This is because Nigerians do not take nonsense. They follow what they want, and they do exactly what they want. And therefore, we cannot, this aspect cannot be taken in isolation. We must be the designers and promoters of our security agencies and security of our country. Nigeria has 1,050 porous border. I think Nigeria is one of the most porous countries on earth.
Okay. Now, you know, this Borno explosion is coming barely 24 hours after the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, you know, made a statement saying all bandits should be killed. Would you say that explosion was kind of a way of them making their presence known? And should we really prepare ourselves for something worse?
What do you understand by terrorism? Terrorism, the primary explanation or the primary definition of terrorism is to instill fear on the people by attacking government installations, by attacking the government, by killing the security agencies, by bringing fear, creating heightened situation. That is terrorism. And they do not have address, and you cannot recognize them. You understand what I'm saying? So what they did was just to send a message, fear again, to create that fear. I told you there was pressure in the country when they were on campaign, when the terrorists were on huge campaign. There's so much pressure. Today, that pressure is out, it's only fear. So if they start their campaign now, there's going to be that pressure again. Understand the difference between fear and pressure. Pressure kills early, faster than fear.
Okay, you know, talking about this fear, I want us to really maybe give some more perspective to it. It's almost natural when something new starts to have that initial frenzy, or I would say initial fear, you know, in a very high level. We've seen that, for instance, with the case of COVID-19. When the world woke up to COVID-19, there was this uncertainty, there was this so much fear in the atmosphere, such that countries locked down without even thinking about the consequences. But that is not happening anymore, even with the different variants that have come now. You know, we are not seeing lockdowns anymore, not like they were from the beginning. So could it be that maybe people have somehow adjusted, you know, to the idea of having been attacked, you know, and all of that, not necessarily that the security situation has abated?
Well, a human being has a sense of adaptation to any kind of situation he finds himself, so that cannot be ruled out. But I would like to tell you something. I traveled in 2014 to Borno State. I left Kano around 8 p.m. I have never been able to go for 20 kilometers without being stopped by the security agency. In fact, vehicles were all put to lie and to sleep on the highway. And I insisted I got to Yobe around 2 a.m. Now, if I want to go to Kaduna now, at any time, nobody checks me on the road.
Is that the absence of security situations or threats?
What I'm telling
is it as a result of absence of security threats that we do not have checkpoints on the roads anymore?
What I'm telling you is that the situation has improved, whether you like it or not. You see, Nigerians...
Let's talk about this Abuja-Kaduna road, for instance. There were consistent attacks on that road.
Yeah.
We still do not have security officials on that road. So, would it be right to say that the absence of security checkpoints on our roads is because security situations has improved, really?
Well, that could be a strategy anyway. Because I tell you one thing, it's not about the presence of security you see on the highway that means there are security on that way. Nigerians do not, most of us don't know that sometimes there's something we call decoy. You can have security representing that highway, but they are not on uniform. And if you are on uniform, you are an easy target.
But people are abducted in large numbers on these roads.
It doesn't mean if you have security on that highway that everybody they cannot be operated. There are some targeted period of operation. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like you said, why is it that you are in Abuja and you don't know what is happening in Zuba?
But shouldn't we be thinking ahead, of these people? Because terrorists think ahead.
We don't have the agencies that are dedicated for these services. Nigerian army is not meant for all these things they are doing. They are just helping. Just like I told you, in the US, when 9/11 happened, everybody was drafted. All the security, the army, the military, any other security were drafted for the occasion. Immediately thereafter, they went back to their drawing board and brought out an agency that is dedicated to checking out threats from anywhere that is coming from America. From your own country, they will start checking out your activities, your movement, where your money is going and all this. Who is that money that you are sending, where is it going to, and who is taking it, who is the recipient of that money, etc. Terrorism, to fight terrorism is not only about actions and war. No, it goes beyond that. You have to look at a financial aspect. Who are sponsors of these things? You not see how you can block them. Who are the indoctrinators? Like Boko Haram, we are trained in Mali. How do they get those training in Mali? Where are the roots? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So there was a situation recently that there was a security alert that somebody is coming from somewhere in Mali to help the Boko Haram or the bandits to cause havoc in Abuja within this military period. That has been going around everywhere now. How is it we are able to get that information? What have we done about that information? Before this thing started in Kaduna, I'm one of the earliest people that alerted the military and the state security that we have cited people that came in from around Kano area with hillocks, 3 hillocks, white hillocks, and they were up to Bunungwari, up to the bush of Bunungwari. From there, they took that way through Kebi, entered Zamfara. They were tracing how to have camp. We said it. In our report then, we say they are suspected ISIS members. You understand what I'm saying? So
have you seen a response that is positive?
Was there an action taken?
Exactly.
Were we able to block it? This is what I'm saying. The security architecture of Nigeria needs to be improved, one. Secondly, we need to bring experts who can see the future, who can think ahead, who can permutate based on what is happening in another country, what is the relationship with Nigeria. Let me tell you, when the Pentagon House sent a representative to come to my office, we sat down with him, we were saying, he said, do you know that anything that affects Nigeria has affected America? That is why we are here. And anything that is affecting America will directly has ripples on Nigeria. You understand? So this connectivity is what our security organization.
Okay,
do they have this kind of thinking?
Okay, so if you talk about more engagement, or some kind of expansion, or some kind of engagement of expertise in what we have been doing, it will require some kind of funding and budgeting. Would you consider Nigeria has one of the highest budgets in terms of defense, at least in Africa?
Lowest in Africa.
It is one of the highest.
No.
I mean, the budget has continued to increase. We are talking about over 500 billion naira at the moment.
Listen,
is that not enough?
What is the quantum of the 5 billion naira you are talking as to what the Egyptian people are, quantum of their money? What can 5 billion?
500 billion.
Call it trillion. Equate it with the worth with other foreign countries I see. You see, the issue is when you are looking at the size, what is the size of Nigerian military? the security, I just told you they are less than 1 million. Now, you expect over less than 1 million. We don't have any technological base of security threat detection. Our highways are very open, free. There is no single way of detecting anything. No message receiving from the highways. Nobody is monitoring anything. Even within the FCT. We saw cameras the other time, bogus camera, 1920 camera that came, and nothing, from the day they installed them up to now, they haven't worked for 20 minutes. Money's gone, everything, nobody is saying anything about that. Our highways are completely at the mercy of the travelers. So we don't have monitoring as a system. Even common drones that we will encourage our university undergraduates to start thinking of how to produce drones so that we can put them as common cameras to man places. We cannot do it. The government is not funding any research. Most researchers, people are allowed to die with their initiatives. The country needs to have a rethink. I think Nigeria, we should go back to the drawing board. It's not about all these things we are saying. We should start planning in the next 100 years. We should have plans in the next 50 years. We should be able, as a military head or a military chief, I should be able to tell you by this time, this period, everything called banditry is out of the country line. Like we sent proposal, my organization, NESO, Neighborhood Enlightenment and Safety Organization, sent proposal to the Mr. President and told him to give us only 3 months to clear Kaduna, Zaid, Zamfara Road, all this place. 3 months.
We have
3 months.
We have so much.
Nobody
so much to talk about.
is responding. We asked for only 3 months. And let's see if between Kaduna, Abuja, or Abuja, Lokoja, or whether we hear anything again. You see, sometimes you are bringing yourself out to challenge the situation. Right. But nobody is saying, come, let's see, what are your ideas?
Right. There's so much to talk about, but unfortunately we have to stop here.
Thank you for coming on the program and giving us this perspectives. We've been speaking with security consultant Sanya Liu, and he has been giving us thoughts around recent happenings on security situation in the country. Let's take a breather now, and then when we come back, we'll continue with the show. Please stay with us.
The board and management of Media Trust Limited invites the general public to its annual Daily Trust Dialogue, themed 2023, The Politics, Economy and Insecurity. Date, 20th January 2022. Location, NAF Conference Center and Suites, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Chairman of the occasion, former Head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar, GCFR. Guest Speaker, Governor of Kaduna State Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Guest Speaker, Governor of Ebonyi State Engineer David Umahi. Guest Speaker, former Chairman Federal Inland Revenue Service Mrs. Ifueko Omoigui Okauru. Moderator, Executive Director, Daria Media Nigeria Limited, Kadaria Ahmed. The event will be transmitted live on TrustTV, and all participants must observe COVID-19 protocols and wear their face masks.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital city, Abuja. Now let's take a look at what the dailies are saying this morning. We'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Right on the top, you'd see IBB endorses Oshibajo for 2023 presidency. There's a huge pictorial there that shows the projects commissioned by President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday in Borno State, talking about Borno's first flyover and another landmark of Governor Babagana Zulum in 2 years. Some of the key features are the project started in 2020 and it was completed in 2021 at the cost of 4.2. You also see longest in the northeast, and it is located at Old Customs Roundabout in Maiduguri. Part of the project are two-stage type with ramps 1 and 2 and the ground routes networks. You'd also see 3.55 kilometer combined length, which connects Maiduguri with Gamboru Road from eastern axis, Bama from southern axis, and Baga through the north axis. Part of the project commissioned also are 2 pedestrian bridges from both sides. So these are some of the stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right. Well, let's take a look at other stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. The lead story says, NIS warns of foreign terror attacks. FG heightens security. You would see that on page 2 with the riders. Nigerian, Algerian terrorists on the way from Mali to invade Abuja. Plan can never work. FCT security network intact, says Guard Brigade. You'd also see strategies in place to avert attacks. No cause for alarm. That's according to immigration. Also, we have other stories there. At the very top, you would find darkness looms as 6 power plants halt operations over gas shortage. And that's on page 21 of the Punch. Can kicks as FG limits religious gatherings to 50%. We will raise infrastructure finance from 13 trillion naira pension funds. Others, that's the central bank. 5 killed as terrorists bomb Maiduguri airport areas. I beg your pardon. They bomb Maiduguri airport areas ahead of Buhari's visit. You'd also see beside the pictorial there showing you stories about divorce. We are probing possible hacking of Olori Naomi's Instagram page, says Ooni's Palace. You'd see also Lagos declares Magodo invasion unwarranted, vows to prosecute culprits. I possess qualities to become outstanding governor. That's according to Bamidele. You'd also see the pictorial there showing you the Idumota end of the Nnamdi Azikiwe Road of Lagos Island, how, choked up and congested it is, I believe, in light of Christmas and all of that. These are the major stories on the Punch today.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper this morning. The lead story there, oil spills hit 14 million litres as Shell's 800 billion naira judgment upsets industry. The riders, NNPC, Shell, other spills worth 2.8 billion in months. Experts question integrity of oil infrastructure as failure persists. IOCs must be forced to clean up as they divest, stakeholders demand. You'd find on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper, darkness looms as gas shortage hits Gencos. You'd also see broadcast stations get February 17 deadline to renew licenses. And on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper, COVID-19, federal government restricts religious gathering to 50% capacity. And on page 4, NSCDC commandant forfeits 60 buildings land to federal government. These are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right. But we have in the studio Nuruddin Abdallah, editor, 21st Century Chronicle, in the studio to give us perspectives on the stories that made the headlines. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right. Now let's look at the stories this morning. Is about insecurity is on the front burner again. There's an alarm raised about invasion of the federal capital territory. Should we be worried now, even as we observe the Yuletide?
Yes, because the alert is not coming from you and me. It's coming from the people who should know, the people who should protect us, the security agencies. Even though it is by a paramilitary agency, the immigration services, but even before now, there was a similar alert from the DSS. So I think maybe what Nigerians want, particularly this particular time, is not for security agencies to be heightening the tension. We want all these potential threats nipped in the bud. We want arrests, like some countries do. We want to see these Malian terrorists holding Algerian passports, I think if you have such details, unless if, for instance, now the details have been transferred to you by maybe a sister agency elsewhere, these people should be apprehended. But more importantly, we talk about, I think they even have his passport numbers, the number of vehicles he's been driven in and what have you. If the terrorist coming through a formal border, is he coming from Libya? Or is Seme or Idi Oroko? Our country is porous. We can man it.
We're actually seeing a response to that by the Guards Brigade saying plan can never work. FCT security network is intact. Are we really ready for this?
When Guards Brigade speaks, when they say the federal capital, which part of the federal capital are we talking about? Is the 3 armed zones or what? That's the question we should ask. Yes, the Guards Brigade are here. They are the presidential guards. They got critical facilities and top-level government officials, the presidency, what have you. But more importantly, what I see, there won't be invasion like it is, but don't forget, for long, in the last couple of months, the governor of Niger State has been complaining that there are terrorists controlling some parts of the state. Even before he spoke, his counterpart from Nasarawa State came to the presidency, came to the villa, and made the same complaint that intelligence he got from his security services in Nasarawa State, saying that there are some terrorists converging in certain areas. And they sandwich the federal capital. So even though this issue of terrorists coming from Mali and what if but what we're saying here is there is indeed a security threat. Look at the Kaduna-Abuja road. Look at the Abuja-Kefi-Akwanga road. Look at the Abuja-Lokoja. A general was killed not long ago in Kuje. A 3-star general, a major general, not a brigadier general. And that's the end of it. Forget about the pockets of abductions across the state. It's a recurring decimal, for instance, in the Zuba area, Kuje area, Gwagwalede area, and what if you. If you look at the distance from the center, it seems that these people are around us, only that maybe they are not well equipped enough, or they don't have that audacity to launch a major attack on the city. But the issue is that these undesirable elements around. And they are doing smaller abductions, killings, and what have you, that will look the other way.
So if you juxtapose that, yesterday the president visited, Maiduguri, and ahead of his visit, there was something that looked like a welcome to the president, if you may, to put it on a lighter note, just to make a statement, maybe, by suspected Boko Haram elements, explosion, in the country. And the president made some very, very strong statements yesterday by saying that Nigeria is going to deal squarely with enemies of Nigeria, that there is no any stone that will be left unturned as far as that is concerned. He's also going ahead to repeat his words that he has consistently said, that Nigerians should look at the situation now than it was before 2015. So maybe just let's hear your own thoughts, around that, with all that we have been seeing happening.
Yes, Mr. President spoke like a politician. You understand? There was that, like you say, welcome. They welcomed the president with some rockets, local rockets attacks along the Maiduguri airport area. Yes, there is one fact that is not that we cannot controvert: the fact that the capabilities of the terrorists has been decimated indeed. They can carry suicide attacks inside Maiduguri now. And they don't have the capacity to launch even rockets, because if you look at it, they are local rockets, they are non-precision rockets. We hope that they won't get those precision rockets and what have you. And the president always said that we should compare 2015 and now, but that is why we voted for him. Yes, what he say may be tenable in Maiduguri, but what he says may not be tenable in Kaduna, in Zamfara, in Katsina, in Sokoto, in some parts of Kebbi or Nasarawa states. Erufai, the Kaduna State governor, was at the villa recently, just some days ago. Did he go there to have a dinner with the president or to have a tea party? No. He simply went there to lodge complaint that this thing is getting out of hand. People are dying. Days before Erufai's visit to the villa, his Sokoto counterpart was there. He didn't go there to talk about party politics. No, he went there to talk about security. Banditry is raging. Look at what happened in Sokoto. Look at what happened in Kaduna. Recently, bandits took over the Abuja-Kaduna roads. They operated on daily basis for 5 consecutive days. I listened to a security consultant talking about but it seems that we are on top of the situation. Even though maybe the police will say they are on top of the situation, we are not. Saying that there are no attacks in the federal capital is not enough reason to say that the security has improved. Yeah, there may not be bombings like we used to have in 2014 or something like that, but the fact remains that people are being killed, including the VIP. I saw an instance. An immediate past general, a provost marshal of the Nigerian army, was gunned down along the Kuje area. And that was it. A retired AVM in Kaduna was gunned down in his residence. And
let's not forget the lawmaker from Kaduna State who was recently also killed.
So that's the situation. So the situation is, yes, Mr. President, for Maiduguri, for instance, yeah, that is tenable, but not the northwest, some part of the north central. The situation is raging. Look at Sokoto. Look at how those people were roasted in the most horrendous manner ever imagined.
Okay, now tomorrow is Christmas. You know, there's so much fear in the land. And a lot of people have traveled, some, you know, because of the fear, just decided to just spend their Christmas where they are. You know, this launching of attacks that we're seeing and, you know, kidnapping, you know, and bandit activities that we're seeing here and there, should we expect to see anything like that, you know, as we celebrate the Yuletide?
Not necessarily, because bandits or ISWA, Boko Haram terrorists, you know, Boko Haram terrorists always want to make political statements like they did yesterday. You understand? They launched their local rockets. I know they got the headlines.
Right.
Just opposed with Boko Haram hits Maiduguri minutes before President Buhari's visit. They got the headlines. But in the case of bandit, it is not like that. It's mostly economical. And, you know, with the way people, even before this season, you know, they have understood the situation and they realize that following the road, you can only travel if it is extremely necessary. Say a family who is earning just the living wage, the minimum wage, 30K has been abducted and they are demanding 50 million naira. You can see how traumatic that can be. If, for instance, if you listen to one of the conversation with one of the bandits, he said, if everybody I'm related to will be gathered, we can raise such funds. You understand? So even before that, the insecurity has conditioned people. You only travel if it is extremely necessary. Two things, the economic realities. Look at the fuel, even if you have a car. The inflation. So I don't think there will be anything different this season. If you look at it, yeah, people must celebrate Christmas at whatever condition they find. But there is nothing different from what we used to have. And like I say, people have conditioned themselves. Inflation has conditioned them. Insecurity has conditioned them. Other economic realities have. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I think there won't be much. Look at it. Maybe if you go to the garages and those days, 5 days, 4 days to the time you will see people like it is a war. But I haven't seen that in the media yet.
A lot of racketeering, people trying to get across.
Yeah. So that is it. So that is it. So the situation actually needs to be overhauled.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll continue with our conversation on Daybreak. Please stay with us.
The board and management of Media Trust Limited invites the general public to its annual daily trust dialogue themed 2023, The Politics, Economy and Insecurity. Date, 20th January 2022. Location, NAF Conference Center and Suites, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Chairman of the occasion, former Head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar, GCFR. Guest Speaker, Governor of Kaduna State Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Guest Speaker, Governor of Ebonyi State Engineer David Umahi. Guest Speaker, former Chairman Federal Inland Revenue Service Mrs. Ifueko Omoigui Okauru. Moderator, Executive Director, Daria Media Nigeria Limited, Kadaria Ahmed. The event will be transmitted live on TrustTV and all participants must observe COVID-19 protocols and wear their face masks.
All right, welcome back. Now let's take a look at some other stories on our dailies this morning. On the Daily Trust newspaper, there's a story about IBB endorsing Oshibajo for 2023 presidency. Could you comment on that?
Yes, the Maradona is back.
The Maradona,
the Maradona is back, The other time I remember, he said Nigeria should be, he foresee a president by 2023 who is, was it little above 60? I don't know whether endorsing Osibanjo now is in line with his earlier we will see. IBB is somebody that you take very seriously. That is one. He knows Nigeria very well. He knows most of these characters parading themselves, trying to be A, B, C, X, Y, Z by 2023. But more importantly, if you read the story here, Osibanjo has all the, he has the competence, yes, and he may have the acceptance as well. People know him as a gentleman. He's a professor of law. He's a man of God. And if you're talking about experience, apart from his Lagos experience for 8 years, he will be vice president, maybe God willing, for 8 years. So he understood this government.
Yeah, so, but, it's somehow you're brewing some kind of conflict where you make such statements because, we know that in the Southwest, some of the persons there that hold the political influence, are also considering the 2023 presidency. I do not really want to go into details, but I will let you
Yeah, that's correct. But, talking about power shift, we spoke about power shift some times back. If you say power shift to the South, it should be power shift to somebody that's come from the South. And the faith professes by that person equally matters. So with the present arrangement, after a northerner, a Muslim, served for 8 years by 2023, a southerner who belongs to the other faith, major faith, as Christianity, should be given the... But all these things are determined by so many factors. Osibanjo's benefactor, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the front runner. But like I said, Osibanjo is understanding this government by 2023 for 8 years. So the ruling party, the APC, for instance, now, if they want to consolidate Buhari's laudable achievements, who should be that person that will...
Okay. When we voted for Buhari, we voted for President Buhari to fight, corruption and all of that. Yeah. And you've mentioned quite a number of qualities that we all know Oshibajo has. But it seems like when they get into office, just like a chameleon, they change.
Yes, but in the last 6 years, the vice president hasn't changed much. Remember, we do campaign with him, particularly in 2015. Yeah, throughout the 20 hours in the campaign, the APC presidential campaign trail in 2015. I see him now from afar, but I don't think he has changed that much. Basically because he's not just a politician. He's a professional, he's a lawyer. Not only a lawyer, professor of law, and he's equally a pastor. So, when you put all these things, and he has the competence.
Well, we'll get to see how all that pans out, because there's a whole lot, involved in this.
Sure.
If you read the story, you hear the Asiwaju part, where his own supporters are also saying, look, you cannot do that. You are wasting your endorsement, telling...
They may go to me now and get another endorsement again. There will be a series of endorsements.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your perspective with us this morning. We've been speaking with Nuruddin Abdallah. He's the editor, 21st Century Chronicle. and he's our reviewer for today. Let's take a short break and then look at this a video clip where there was this conversation or chit-chat sort of between some governors in the south and southern part of the country, actually. Take a look.
Remember you win, no,
this one don't be governor. Ask him. Meantime, we start our struggle.
The struggle since you don't see him again. No,
why I don't go see him?
No, be surprised to see him.
We surprised. If we didn't do what we did, you think you go to the office now?
What do you do?
Eh?
What do you do? You can't do that. You can't work for better than I didn't do it before. You don't work now. Right in the history of Nigeria, where Nigeria.
If we didn't do it, you go get opportunity, they do road, they do project. People, they call you Mr. Project. And then they come out for road. If we don't do this place like this, you.
What is the essence of if you don't do? If you don't do. From Ekiti to Ankura Road. What do you go to?
Don't worry about that one. Don't worry about that one. It is because we are solid Democrats. Do this place like this, you.
What is the essence of if you don't do? If you don't do. From Ekiti to Ankura Road. What do you go to?
Don't worry about that one. Don't worry about that one. It is because we are solid Democrats. We for
The board and management of Media Trust Limited invites the general public to its annual Daily Trust Dialogue, themed 2023, The Politics, Economy and Insecurity. Date, 20th January 2022. Location, NAF Conference Center and Suites, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Chairman of the occasion, former Head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar, GCFR. Guest Speaker, Governor of Kaduna State Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Guest Speaker, Governor of Ebonyi State Engineer David Umahi. Guest Speaker, former Chairman Federal Inland Revenue Service Mrs. Ifueko Omoigui Okauru. Moderator, Executive Director, Daria Media Nigeria Limited, Kadaria Ahmed. The event will be transmitted live on TrustTV, and all participants must observe COVID-19 protocols and wear their face masks.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, you are watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Now, to our second discussion on the program, a recent data from Gencos show that average Nigeria's unutilized power generation has increased year on year to over 3,000 megawatts in 2021 from over 1,000 megawatts in 2013, before rising consistently to over 2,000 and over 2,000 and 3,000 megawatts in 2016 and 2017 respectively. This is indication of an increase of 291% in the past 8 years, due mainly to lack of infrastructure. Now, the report revealed that adequate investment has not been made over the years to transmit and distribute electricity to consumers, including households and companies, after 8 years of privatization. This has denied the nation of substantial power which could have been utilized to boost economic and other activities in other sectors worldwide. It has also constrained Gencos from generating revenue from their unutilized power over the years, especially as data noted that although available generation capacity exceeds 5,000 megawatt. It has not resulted in 100% invoice settlement. Now, to give us perspectives on the issue of power, we have in the studio the founder and executive partner, Lofty Inc., Michael Olugbemi, here in the studio with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this issue of power. I mean, it's an old conversation that we've always had. And we want to see it from the different perspectives. Data is showing us that there has been an increase. But as an expert, would you say that the increase is commensurable to what is expected by now in 2021 from the time that this privatization took place?
Yeah, thank you again for having me, and good morning to your audience. The power journey for Nigeria, I would say it's been in different phases. I mean, the attempt at privatization was after the successful privatization of the telecom sector. And the thinking around that was that once you privatize, then everything was going to be fine. I mean, you just needed to privatize, and money will rush in, and everything will be huru. The way we used to have Nitel, issues with Nitel, and then it was government controlled, and we simply just sold some licenses, and investment came into the telecom sectors. The same thing will happen in the power sector.
Until everyone has phones today.
Yes, everyone has phones now, but everyone cannot have their own power generation station in the first place. So it's a very different sector, very, very different.
Yeah, but at least options. People should have more options, isn't it?
People should have more.
Isn't it the idea?
Yeah, the idea was, I think, even the basic idea was more investment into the sector. Government alone could not bear the burden of providing power to the citizens. So you wanted to encourage private sector investment into the sector. So you had two parts. You had a part of either privatizing for the purpose of just pure investment, and you have the other part of privatizing for increasing power access. So Nigeria decided to do one, when they say you're neither warm nor cold. So we try to, walk the fine line. And then oftentimes, if you look at the Potter forces in a rule or the Potter law in management, you end up getting the worst outcome. And that's exactly what happened. In our privatization strategy, we're not very clear. What were we trying to encourage? Were we trying to encourage more investment into the sector, or were we trying to just purely encourage more power access to the general citizens? What do I mean by power access? How many people actually have meters connected to them and lines that get to them? We wanted to have it in both ways. And oftentimes, as a strategy, it never works. You have to choose one. You have to decide, do I just want more investment? Then that way, what you do is to maximize the potential return to investors, and investors will rush in. Do I just want to provide power access? Then all you need to do is to provide access, generally speaking, and maybe you're going to prioritize renewable energy and some other strategy. But we never were very clear. We're wishy-washy in the privatization. And that's what you've seen in the outcome. The outcome have been suboptimal in the last 8 years. Now, what has gone on in the last 2 to 3 years, actually, is to be commended. I mean, from a perspective of an industry practitioner, is that finally we're trying to now focus on what really matters, in the sense of what do you need to do to make the power sector work. We've been saying this for the past 5 years prior, when the privatization process was bungled, in my opinion. Because, for example, let's take that privatization process, for example. What we did was we unbundled the disco sector. We did the same thing with the Genco sector, and then we disaggregated them. The guy producing the power could not see from where, after he produces the power, where he's going to get the money from, right? So we went with the Indian model. Whereas there are various other options we could do, where we could do vertical integrated privatization, such that the guy producing at a co-disco, within a co-disco, is also the one selling within a co-disco. So that way you can hold his feet for fire and say, look, you're a co-disco, provide me more power. You have more citizens that are here, provide me more power. But you can't do that under the second circumstance, because the Gencos produce power, send it to TCN, and they pray that TCN send it to some Genco, and then at the end of the day, there's another body called MBET that is supposed to now distribute the money to everybody. So it's so disorganized.
So do you think that this creates some kind of bottlenecks
in
the whole process?
Not only the bottlenecks, it creates some moral, how would I call it, some ethical, it even throws up some basic investment questions, right? Because if I'm investing in the Genco, I want to see how my money comes back. So to an investor, you're looking, if I invest in a Genco, I don't own the disco, neither do I own the market settlements mechanism. So why should I put my money into the sector? That's what you saw in the last 5 to 6 years prior. Why there was no investment. Now, what had been done in the last 1 year, CBN stepped in with the NERC regulator, and they created what they call the settlement system, where all discos money that they are collecting had to be domiciled in a DMB. And then from the DMB, CBN, as the regulator of the DMB, basically decides, based on what the DISCO and the NERC have proposed, what goes first to all the people that had contributed to the electricity being produced in the first place. The GENCOs, the TCN guys, the MBET, they first get settled. And then whatever is left, they send it now to the DISCOs to use. It didn't used to be the case. So what happened before was that DISCO, who were sitting at the last tail end, who were not the ones that invested in gas, they were not the ones that invested in transmission, they were not the ones that invested in generation, basically got the money first, and they collected most of it and told the rest of the sector to take care of themselves. So what you had with this new rule that was introduced late last year, and that was started to be implemented, I think from December last year to early this year, was that no, you can't do that. The DISCOs had to collect the money, it has to be resident in the bank. And the banks now decided, based on CBN and NEC coordination, who got the money based on a predetermined formula that they've already agreed. And so what did we see? We saw that liquidity went up. Over quarter on quarter, liquidity went up from 34%, even quarter on quarter, from 124 billion to 184 billion, and then it went to 234 billion, which is what we've been saying. So basically, we had actors, bad actors in the system before, that were basically cheating the system. And without the DISCOs remitting the amount of money that's supposed to go to the GENCO, what we have is that basically actors stay out of the GENCOs. Nobody invests in generation. Nobody invests in transmission. So what you now had is that that got corrected, and almost immediately we saw Tony Elumelu pick up the FM5 station and paid 400 billion for it, because it now makes sense. If I'm going to buy a GENCO asset, I want to see how my money is going to come back to me. And you can't have DISCOs now constitute themselves to the ones that are always running away with the money, we're not seeing the money. So that was one. Another thing that happened was there was this service-based tariff system that was introduced. So if you had power for 8 hours minimum in a day, you got a certain tariff band. If you got power for between 8 to 12 hours, you got another tariff band. So that's graduated all the way to top-tier customers that got power from, say, 20 to 24 hours a day. You paid more. So the more you paid, the more power you get, basically. And then if you got power less than, I think, about 6 hours a day, you basically paid nothing, essentially. You know, if you're from the poorest rural communities that don't have access to regular power, then you're not burdened with high tariff rates. So they created the different bands and categories of classes of tariffs. And this is the right approach. The approach is, over time, DISCOs now have an incentive to make sure that the parts of the classes of their customers that pay the most got constant power. What now happens is that when they got constant power, the DISCOs are flushed, and the liquidity is now in the system for them to extend the distribution network to the areas where they don't have regular power because of weak infrastructure. And then over time, when the tide rise, all boats get lifted. So what we were doing before, we were descending to the lowest common denominator. Now with this new strategy, everybody will try to rise to the best level of.
All right, now given that, we are making some progress, you know, even though may not be commensurable to what we desire, you know, as Nigerians. We are also understanding that we generate more than we actually eventually consume.
Correct.
Maybe because of infrastructure, from the distribution angle of things. You know, much more is generated, but when it comes to, you know, the final consumer getting it, who is supposed to, you know, be responsible for making sure that as much as is generated is also consumed at the same time?
Yeah, so there's an engineering part of my brain that says, okay, you don't consume everything you generate. I mean, it's just, there's a part of it, you have to have what they call spinning power. So I won't get into the details of that. You will never consume 100% of your generation. But you should try as much as possible to consume up to 80-90%. Yes, 80-90%. You must have your spinning power in case there's a downfall. There's all the redundancy and all that. So there's an engineering part of my brain there. But let me now speak to the common man. There's also the other part of this that we also have to understand is that we are sort of creating, because of all the adjustments in the system, is why you are having this new problem of, oh, you're not consuming as much as you're generating. Once upon a time, we never just generated enough, right? Or we even generated, or the generation power stations were not working. So some things have been done that had allowed our generation to now step up, but our distribution is not keeping up with it. So what we need to now do is to now reinforce the distribution side, and which was the reason why the president launched about 2 years ago the power project, the Siemens Power Project. The idea around the Siemens Power Project is to reinforce the distribution network across the country, invest in those distribution network. Just 2 weeks ago, the Federal Executive Council approved the first line of acquisition of substations across Nigeria by the FGN Power Company, which is a company invested in implementing the Siemens Power Project, which is focused on actually the distribution side of the network. Now, the other side of this also is to know that this is an extraordinary intervention by the federal government. It is not the responsibility. Under the new so-called industry rules and laws that created the new industry post-privatization, distribution was already privatized. Federal government owned, not even federal government, the government itself owns about aggregate of 40% of the, I would say about, because they also have some that they are still holding 100% for a period, but it's changing also, like Yola Disco. And they are old aggregate of about 40%. The private sector owns 60%. And so the responsibility, financially, technically, is with the private sector. But the federal government cannot sit aside and just watch the entire sector go down, because power sector is not just an utility, it's a strategic sector. There's a reason why when Boko Haram want to take out security in Maiduguri, they attack the power sector. So the power sector is strategic. No country will just say its power sector is 100% privatized, which is why it's very different from telecom, right? So what federal government has done is to do this extraordinary intervention to help strengthen the distribution network so that we can start evacuating more powers to those people that need it. But it doesn't mean that everybody still do not have a role to play. The distribution sector, the distribution companies also have an obligation under the terms of their investment to go and raise capital, to invest in their distribution network. Sitting down and saying and throwing your hands in the air and say, oh, if you don't do anything about it, well, you're the one that's wasting power. Well, the generation company are going. Well, I think the federal government also, the policymakers, the regulators also have a role to play. NERC, I think, made a rule earlier this year to say that you can actually evacuate power directly to immediate surrounding or contiguous area if you're a power generation company. So that way you're not dependent on a weak distribution infrastructure and having to evacuate into the transmission network and then compelled to waste your own power. So if you find an eligible customer, it's called the eligible customer rule, where you can actually find an eligible customer close to you, a cement factory, a bottling factory, a manufacturer, and you can sell power directly to them. Again, these are measures that can be taken in the short term. In the long run, I think what you need to do is to relook into the whole configuration of this privatization program, and if necessary, for some form of consolidation. I think we need to look at what we did in the banking sector, where they were forced to consolidate at some point. We need to look at how do we consolidate the GENCOs and the DISCOs. Maybe we need to have some kind of rule issued by NARC, require some kind of recapitalization, which will then force maybe listing on the stock exchange so that these guys can actually increase liquidity to invest in the sector.
Okay, now in your assessment, would you say the privatization of the power sector was the right move, that Nigeria actually made?
Privatization as a concept is fine. How you go about it is more important. I think the way they went about it, because it was also the lead up to the last major election, 2015, was done almost like a settlement for the boys. I mean, there's hardly anybody in the sector that doesn't feel this way. There were no participation by internationally renowned energy companies in that process. We didn't have any major investment by big international electricity provider, and there was a reason why. Because they looked at that process and said that process didn't make sense from pure financial return perspective, and they've been correct. And secondly is that the way the entire industry was divvied up was not practical. For this level of development of Nigeria, you coming out with multiple distribution companies, disjointed from multiple generation companies, and then you have a single TCN that, pushes power between these two disaggregated entities. And then you have another temporary body, MBET, that's supposed to be doing settlement. What's not practical? And then anybody that understood power sector at the international level, and I've seen this being done either in India, in Brazil, in South Africa, even in the US, will tell you that that was not going to work. And that was what we got. So the process was bungled, no doubt. This administration was left with a very, very bad outcome to deal with. And so when I see people jumping on them to say, oh, you've not done this, the reality is that they were not the one that bungled it. And the reality also is that if they try to unbundle it by saying, bring back the license, the same people will go on TV and start shouting, oh, investors, you're chasing investors away. Oh, you're destroying investors. Anyways. Exactly. So you're caught between the devil and the red.
Someone has to take the tough decision.
Yeah.
And the unpopular decision.
Of course.
No matter what, no matter who's going to be, brushed,
Sure.
For that. Yeah. So which is why the current administration is, voted into office in the first place. So let's talk about, how much of effort that they are making in terms of unbundling this and changing, some of these arrangements?
Yeah, so we saw the recent regulatory action. They sort of tried to parry over it. That was done in Abuja Disco here. I mean, it was necessary. It was long overdue. And that's what we've been saying. Like, some of these guys that participated in this process were not necessarily the right guys to sell this sector, these assets to. And you needed to come in and step in to change this conversation at some point. Now, in the case of Abuja Disco, it was long overdue. They basically even led at some point to loss of complete power to the city, the capital city, which is strategic, which is security implication for that. And so it made no sense why they wouldn't come in to change and remove the bad actors in terms of the owners of that Abuja Disco. I think that was well done. The other two things I mentioned before in terms of the restructuring of the payments, in terms of the tariff, service-based tariffs, commendable. Those things increase liquidity into the sector, in addition to the metering program, which phase 0 has now been done, and they're now implementing phase 0. Very commendable, because those are the things that you need to do to ensure investment into the sector if you're going to go on a privatization scheme. Last but not least, I think the most important thing this administration is actually doing is in the area of power access, especially to the rural poor. When you look at what is being done through the REA, or what is being done through what they call the COVID intervention, the ESP intervention under the COVID committee, it is very important that we get renewable power to the rural communities that might not even be able to access the fancy grid power you and I are discussing here today. How do we make sure that rural communities in Nigeria get 12, 18 hours of electricity so that their night economy can come back again, so that they can be able to have a prolonged increased GDP, so that they can be able to improve their farm produce, process it, so that they can be able to store food products so that it stops going to wastage. Those things to me are even more important than whether we spend $12 billion on cement or we spend $10 billion. We call all this massive amount of money. The reality is that with just less than 1% of that amount, you can transform rural communities across Nigeria. People still don't understand. Grid power in Nigeria gets to maybe 40, 45% of the communities, and maybe only 33% of them actually get some grid power in a month. So we still have 2/3 of the country in virtual darkness. So when we are having this debate around grid power, whether you have constant electricity, it's an elitist discussion among city people. So my thing is, how do we get renewable energy power to our rural communities where the action is? This is where young boys live. I mean, your previous segment was around security. It's about people being engaged, people being meaningfully engaged in economic activities. And if you as a farmer...
Which is where I'm going, next with my question. That power for industries, power for companies that will employ people. I mean, we've heard about the stories of how in the past, we've had textile companies, say in Kaduna, for instance, that usually will employ thousands of people and all of that. But most of them have had to go under because of the issues of power, one of them.
Yes, one of the issues.
How can we make an arrangement for industries in such a way that Nigeria can be able to produce more? Manufacturers can even be able to compete better, with their counterparts coming from other countries. How can we do that?
Two things. One is that we need to really look into the entire architecture of power in Nigeria. The current architecture is not working. I mean, again, the definition of madness is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You cannot expect, the simple physics of power production. I produce power here, and then I'm going to evacuate that power into an imaginary grid that is controlled somewhere in the Showbo, by the way, which is the National Control Center. And then they will now dispatch it. So before you do, the entire physics of power losses, when it goes into the power line and all that, we should understand that at the end of the day, it's better if that power should be dispatched to areas near where it is being produced. And there's no part of Nigeria that cannot produce a lot of power. The entire northwest and north central zone today is probably the power beast of Nigeria. When you look at the Niger state, which is producing the bunch of the Kaduna, all of the Gurara. There's no part of Nigeria that cannot produce own power. Hydro, solar, and gas. If you look at Nigeria, it's a country that is rich in any of these three sources of power. So the idea is, how do we increase the production and dispatch within each of these geographical catchment zones? The current strategy of saying, everybody produce your power in your different area, you produce power all the way out in Kwale, in Delta State, and then you dispatch it into this imaginary grid, and you've lost about 20-30%.
Exactly.
When it's been moved to the imaginary grid, then dispatched again, then you have another distribution loss. We are wasting. We have adopted a culture.
If you look at the AEDC, for instance, that distributes power to several other states, as far as Edo State. So
when you have Geregu next door here in Kogi State, and it can just adopt AEDC can just have Geregu at its own Genco and increase the capacity of power in Geregu. AKK pipeline is now being constructed.
So what would that take? Would it take some kind of infrastructural, maybe fresh, construction of, structures, to do that?
It just takes us reimagining our sector. A lot of this thing is not so much. It's about someone saying, you know what you are doing right now is madness. You just really need to not stop doing what you're doing. I mean, it is currently, and let me tell you, it's simple, not legislative now, regulatory action like what Professor Soludo did with CBN, done by NERC. And I keep telling people that the missing piece in all of this action is the NERC. We need imaginative regulation. If you have imaginative regulation, a simple regulatory order from NERC requiring consolidation of GENCOs and DISCOs. Every DISCO must have a GENCO. Just imagine, and all of you must now be capitalized by $5 billion overnight. If you like, go to the stock exchange. I give you 3 months, I take over the company.
So we are losing in oversight function here.
That's what Soludo did. Soludo basically said, every bank must be worth this amount in 1 year. If you are not worth this amount, you no longer exist. All of them went looking for capital. And what happened? We have 25 big banks. Yeah, so it's a regulatory action. You just need regulatory action here. You need creative regulatory action.
What is stopping this from happening? Is it the politics around the power sector?
You have, for 20-25 years, you had mushroom banks. Before you had the Professor Soludo. And Professor Soludo basically said, I will do it. And everybody told him, go to hell, you can't do it. And he said, I will do it. And he did it. And you need, again, everybody keeps saying, oh, president, everybody saying, governor. I keep telling people, whatever job you're given, do it well. You are given chairman of NERC. This is an imagine. You've seen what CBN did with banks. They are the same thing. Banks, utility companies, they are all regulated sector. And the ultimate player in the regulated sector is the regulator. And the regulator gets whatever he wants. If you have sat down and we have looked at this sector and said, it doesn't make sense the way you have disaggregated production to distribution, I can write a rule. After doing the required consultation to make sure that they don't take me to court, there's a process that regulators go through. You do your town hall, you go through the process 6-9 months, and you come out and say, look, new rule. Everybody that is a GENCO must have a DISCO. Every DISCO must have a GENCO. And all of you must be worth $3 billion. Meaning that you have to go and raise money from the capital markets, and meaning that then you have money and cash to invest in your infrastructure. Again, these things are no-brainer. It's just we have to be creative.
Well, very, very strong point there, because I mean that's a major issue. Because each time you talk about, if you talk to economic experts, about manufacturing and production in Nigeria and why Nigeria is not exporting enough, one of the issues that they are going to raise is the issue of power.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I keep telling people it's unfortunate because if you think about it, Nigeria is a gas country. We have more gas than oil, and almost 80% of our land surface has gas on that. I mean, as far as Bauchi, as northern as Niger State, there's gas everywhere in Nigeria. So there's no scarcity of gas in Nigeria, number one. Let's talk about that. People talk,
why is it expensive? Why is
well, there's a whole different situation around the supply chain. I know you're talking about LPG and LNG, but the reality is that we're a gas country. We are wasting, if you fly from Ghana all the way to Kigali, so you pass, that plane will take you across the coast of Nigeria. You will see how we are flaring gas. We are the number 1 gas flare in the world. We are burning our own gas.
And we have that so much concentration of oil.
Gas, and again, I'm just talking about the Niger Delta now. I'm saying all over the country, unexplored gas regions across the country. But that's one. 2, Nigeria is an hydrological paradise. Our country is named after a river. Everywhere in Nigeria is a river. We have about 267 dams. Health, small, big, massive. Each of these dams can produce anything from 2 megawatts to 3,000, 4,000, like Kashimbila and the new. So there's dams everywhere. Yeah, and then thirdly, there's sunlight, abundant. I mean, we all feel heat. So you and I are here, we'll be sweating in 5 minutes. Every roof in Nigeria is a potential power station.
True.
So there's no scarcity of power in Nigeria.
At all. But we still do not have it.
Because we've not organized ourselves.
Exactly. So, recently the NERC also said something that got a lot of us thinking, that some neighboring countries that Nigeria supply electricity to, Benin, Nigeria, and the rest of them, do not actually pay, that they don't pay for the power.
Yeah.
And yet here we are, we need the
Begging
power
for power.
and we do not have it, you know, in supply and all of that. What exactly is happening between Nigeria and its neighbors when it comes to providing power? Why do we have to provide power for anybody?
For free.
Okay, so, yeah, well, we are not providing it for free. There's a whole part of this, what we call it power diplomacy. It's a whole concept in power, in the power sector that you have to. It's complex, and complicated. Number one, you have to remember that we are at the downstream of most of our rivers, so we are the last to get the water, be it River Niger, or even it comes in from surrounding countries. And if we don't provide them power, then they are incentivized to dam the river upstream, which will mean that we will now have reduced water downstream to produce power for ourselves, as well as water for our farming, irrigation, and the rest of it. So there's what we call power diplomacy, where you, the big boy, who has the capacity to actually build a dam, you build a dam and then you provide some power to keep them from damming upstream and then reducing your own water. Because again, you have the population, 200 million people, they don't. Most of them are lightly populated countries. And you also have the need when it comes to, you have more power on grid than they are. So there's an incentive for you than them to build a dam and to give the power. But there's also an incentive in them owing you money. So if Togo and Benin Republic or Niger owes us money, for example, we can use it over them when it comes to voting for us at United Nations or African Development Bank. And, you know, there's there's a whole area of power diplomacy. So that we have to, again, you're a big boy, you're a giant of Africa, you have to act it. There's some price to pay.
Act it, really?
Yes.
We are acting because we are not. Are we really this giant?
No, the part of it that we have to say is that there's two parts to it. That's the supply side of the power diplomacy. There's the demand side of it. We are not playing the demand side politics very well. What do I mean? Because they are owing you also means that you have access to their market. I can say, no problem, don't pay me back. All I want is a Nigerian power company, MBN or one of the MBNs, to get your 2/3 of your power license. So I don't want the money. Give me access to your market. And then you basically increase the amount of electricity you produce and you sell to you through your own company and you get your money back. And then if the country misbehaves, you can switch off the power. Again, they are all areas of, again, we are playing one side well, we are not playing the other side well. Right. So again, your power can be used for different. Look, Cameroon next to us to the east has massive demand for electricity. They have massive deficits in electricity as we speak right now. And they have a very unstable government. And if that government collapses, there's likely influx of about 5 to 10 million people into Nigeria. So we should be watching our backside. I mean, we have issues with our own problems already, but you have 20 million people in a likely unstable country to the eastern flank of Nigeria. But we have an opportunity to go in there to also say, Mr. Cameroon, if you produce more power, you're going to have more for your people. And we have 2 power stations, Calabar IPP, sitting down there that is spinning out, that is not distributing this issue of utilization. But we're watching it spin out for the last 3 to 4 years. We could easily have said, take some of that 400, 500, 600 megawatt that's spinning out that nobody's taking, and let's take it to Cameroon. And yes, instead of it spinning out, somebody's owing you for it. They might not eventually pay you for it, but at least you can use them owing you for the purposes. Yeah. So these are things that we should be doing. Yeah.
Oh. Well, it makes sense, really.
Where
you say that, because I really, for the life of me, could not understand how, NERC will be saying that these neighbors, they're not.
It's complicated.
It's free.
For the power, yet we need it and all of that. Yes. But again, doesn't mean they shouldn't pay. They should.
They should pay. And we leverage it over them. It's not for any. I mean, only Nigeria. You guys are the. You have OPEC Secretary General, EFDB President, AFREXIM President, you have WTO Chairman. I mean, you are the only country in Africa that has everything. So there's a reason you always use this unpaid power to get votes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, very interesting points there. I think we would end the discussion here and take a look at all the issues. Thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
On the program. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. We've been speaking with Michael Oluwagbemi. He is founder and executive partner, Lofting, and he's been the one giving us perspectives on the issue of power in Nigeria. Now, let's take a breather and look at this report. Christmas is tomorrow, and it is celebrated all over the world, irrespective of the prevailing circumstances. However, the usual pomp and pageantry that marks the season appears to be missing as Nigerians, amidst the resurgence of the COVID-19 pandemic and the harsh economic condition, are faced with a season to remember or forget. Now, we'll be taking a look at a report, around that, and then when we come back, we'll just talk a little bit and then round up the show.
This place is known as Ankura Market, an offshoot of the popular Abubakar Rimi Market in Sabongari, perhaps the main market used by residents of this Christian-dominated Sabongari area of Kano metropolis.
See, before, the 20th of December, you know, go fit pass this road. But now, it can run. Here is Ankura. Even ordinary day, before you pass this road, it's very, very difficult. But now you can see Christmas is approaching. See everybody. We are coming and pick one or two things because of the situation. Now, people are suffering.
No money to buy food. People are not happy. Before, you see people walking around that shows that things are going well, but nothing is going well. Even you put on the table, we will not see people to come and buy. Things are very hard. We are not happy at all.
From fresh tomato to other vegetables, grains to other essentially consumed agricultural products, the supply is always steady here as demand continues to increase, with some items usually cheaper compared to other markets.
Are saying 300, 350, 400. Pharmacies like us, we cannot pay it.
So in other words, everything is hard in every aspect.
Yes, because they are saying that tax is too much for them. Then shop rent now, I used to pay before 20,000. The owner of this my shop now is collecting 50,000 naira. This is attached, not full shop. I'm paying 50,000.
Correct. Now, as I'm talking to you, some people don't have money to even put rice on top fire. Some don't have. In the aspect of ugu, before we normally have ugu, now there is no ugu. The thing is very scarce and it's cost. So some people cannot buy it. Ugu was 15 naira before, now it's 100 naira. Some people don't have that 100 naira to buy.
This continued and uninterrupted hike in price of food items is threatening the purchasing power of the people as they set out for yet another important religious celebration in Christianity.
Situation in the market, that things are very hard. Men are supposed to travel in this season, but because of things are very hard in the market, we are not selling. To buy is very difficult. Things are very hard. As for people, for myself, I don't have something to give my children because I am not making it. I really am making it, or at least I will buy some clothes for my children. But up to now, I have nothing to buy for them. I have nothing to give to my children.
The area I'm seeing that when you buy something today, maybe you come next week, you see addition of another 200 naira or 500 naira. And some places, some other 100 naira, according to the product people are selling.
Although all things relating to present high cost of living in many parts of Nigeria appeared disturbing, many people are still hopeful as they wait for change. And while they wait, their suffering may likely continue to increase. Idris Jubrin, TrustTV News, Kano.
That was Kano.
Yeah, in Kano, the mood in Kano, by that report, specifically in Sabongari, where the reporter went to file that report. Very interesting, really, for festivities, especially Christmas. It's almost like a tradition, or some kind of ritual. Customers will always complain high cost of food in the market. But again, I'm having a rethink about this, that is it really specific to the festive period? Because, we'll be talking about food inflation almost throughout the year.
Yes.
The cost of food in the market has always been high. So is this peculiar to the season? I'm just thinking
for us in Nigeria, if it's festive, prior to festive periods, we always see, marketers saying prices of goods have hiked, particularly food items, tomatoes, onions, and all of that. Just yesterday, a neighbor of mine went to the market and she was lamenting, of the prices that she saw there. And I was like, maybe it's because it's Christmas. We get to see that every year, all year round. Sometimes.
True. I really look forward to where we will not have to have that conversation. And again, you also hear the marketers will be telling you that, well, people are not buying because the cost is quite high. There's no money. There's no this.
Money.
But your shop is still open, and all of that. So I think that we need to move away from this narrative. Our festive periods should not be known for, high cost of things. The same with Salah, the same with every other festive period, in Nigeria. So perhaps we should, move away from this practice. The fact that it's ceasing of, celebration shouldn't mean that people should now go to the market and realize that they cannot afford, the things that they will normally be able to afford. I mean, if anything, this is a religious celebration, so we should, even as a matter of fact, see a reduction in in cost and all of that. But I mean, what many people say, Nigerians are opportunists, so maybe that's why we are seeing.
We shouldn't be opportunist Nigerians. Now this brings us to taking a look at business roundup with Chamun Dabeng.
Paul Adaliku has been announced as the Executive Secretary of the Maritime Organization of West and Central Africa, MOCA. This follows his unanimous acceptance by the Ministers of Transport and members of the body, and expected to run the organization's affairs for the next 4 years from its headquarters in Abidjan. President of Nigeria Private Sector Alliance, Adetokunbo Kayode, on behalf of the National Association of Chambers of Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, the Federation of West African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, FAWACHI, and the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in a statement felicitated with Nigeria and the Ministers of Transportation for ensuring the emergence of Adaliku as the Executive Secretary. Federal government has launched a 30 billion naira infrastructure intervention to drive the growth of the sugar subsector. The drive, launched by President Muhammadu Buhari, is tagged Presidential Intervention on Irrigation Infrastructure to Accelerate Sugar Backward Integration Program Projects, BIP. The President said the goal of the intervention is to support the development of irrigation infrastructure on 10,000 hectares of sugar plantations located at 6 BIP sites, namely Numan, Adamawa State, Sunti, Niger State, Lafiagi, Kwara State, Bachita, Kwara State, Toto and Tunga, Nasarawa State. Recall at the event, President Buhari, represented by the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Niyi Adebayo, said the implementation of the structures would enhance rural jobs, as the recommendation stated that 10% of the total allocation to each BIP operator would be reserved for sugarcane outgrower farmers within the community. National Directorate of Employment NDE has disbursed 5 million naira loans to 50 women in Enugu after they were trained on food processing, interior decorations and event management, and makeover and gele hetai tying. At the opening ceremony of the solar energy training on Wednesday, the NDE Enugu State Coordinator Donatus Azubike, who represented the Director General, National Directorate of Employment NDE Abubakar Fikbo, said the training is replicated in all 36 states of the Federation and Abuja. Meanwhile, representative of the Director's Small Scale Enterprises Department, Carol Elua, said there is a 6-month moratorium before they can start repaying the 100,000 naira loan that each beneficiary got. The women were trained under the Women Empowerment Collaboration Scheme WEX platform, with each beneficiary getting 100,000 naira to put their skills to practice. That's all for business news. I am Chamun Dabeng.
Well, there you have it, business updates there with Chamun Dabeng. Now, let's take a look at sports update as well with Adeni Ajishafe. Take a look.
Hello and welcome to Sport News. Bafana of South Africa could be opportune to participate in the 33rd edition of the African Cup of Nations in Cameroon, despite crashing out during the qualifiers. Former champions were best placed behind Zimbabwe during the qualifiers, and they are in the best position to replace Zimbabwe. Presently, Zimbabwe is facing disqualification from the competition following the dissolution of their football federation, which is against FIFA rule. World Soccer Governing Body, FIFA, instructed Sport Recreation Commission, SRC, to return Zimbabwe Football Association, ZIFA, board that was illegally dissolved. Sport Recreation Commission, SRC head, Kirsty Coventry, says they are ready to face this disqualification, and if it stands against stipulated time, Bafana could step in. Federation of Cameroon Football, FECAFOOT, under the new leadership of Samuel Eto'o, has intensified preparations of the indomitable Lions ahead of the competition. Since his assumption of office, the former Barcelona striker has continued to work hard to ensure a decent outing for the host. With 17 days to this competition, the football body has become the first country to release the final list of 28 players that will represent the country. The list have regular faces like Christian Basogog, Choupo-Moting, Ngadu Michael, Toko Ekambi, Abubakar Vincent, Inje Clinton, and returning goalkeeper Andre Onana. Indomitable Lions will play the opening game against Stallions of Burkina Faso at the Olembe Stadium on the 9th of January. Meanwhile, Ghana head coach Milovan Rajiv has named a 30-man provisional squad for the upcoming Africa Cup of Nations tournaments to be staged in Cameroon. Black Stars are drawn in Group C alongside Morocco, Comoros, and Gabon. Arsenal midfielder Thomas Partey headlines a squad that also includes brothers Andre and Jordan Ayew. Ajax Amsterdam midfielder Mohamed Kudus. It is uncertain if he will be fit in time for the opening game on the 10th of January due to injury. AS Roma teenager Felix Afeanyan also made the cut, and it remains to be seen if he will make himself available for the African showpiece, having previously turned down a call-up citing a personal lack of experience. Orlando Pirates goalkeeper Richard Ofori is among the list of notable omissions. Ofori has struggled with injury of late and has not played for the Buccaneers since the end of August. It is unclear why Joseph Aido and Jeffrey Schlupp failed to receive a call-up, while Southampton defender Mohamed Salisu made himself unavailable for the tournament. 30-man squad are set to meet in Doha, Qatar for a training camp in coming days in preparation for next year's showpiece. Manchester City defender Benjamin Mendy has been charged with a 7th count of rape. Mendy accused of series of sex offenses with a further count of rape subject to reporting restrictions. The restrictions were lifted on Wednesday as Mendy appeared at Chester Crown Court for a hearing ahead of the trial next year. Charge relates to a new complainant and is alleged to have taken place in July 2021. Mendy is now accused of 8 offenses against 5 different women, including 7 counts of rape relating to 4 women. The earlier charges are 3 counts of rape, alleged to have happened on October 11, 2020, sexual touching on January 2, 2021, 1 count of rape on July 24, 2021, and 2 counts of rape on August 23, 2021. Mendy is appearing alongside his co-defendant Louisaha Matuiri of Hercules, Greater Manchester, who is also accused of serious sex offenses against young women. The French international has been in custody since his arrest on August 26th. Both men were remanded into custody at HMP Old Course, Liverpool, after a 40-minute hearing where their trial scheduled for January was put back to later in the year. That's sport news. I am Adeniyi Ajisafe.
There you have it, Sports Roundup.
And with that, we wrap up Daybreak for today. And we want to say, well, have a wonderful Christmas and New Year celebration ahead. For those who are traveling, then, exercise caution. Whatever you do, be vigilant and always look after yourself and people around you. It's very, very important. Well, for me, it's a bye-bye for now. Connect with us on all social media handles as well. And don't forget that you can always catch up with all the discussions on the Daybreak on our YouTube channel. I wish you Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Nigerians.